everybody. I think we're calling Eric now to get him up here.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hey Eric, thanks so much for joining us.
Hey, sorry to surprise you like that.
Well, I don't know if you can see our audience or not, but I'm standing in a very crowded room full of Solana developers. We're on day 2 of the conference, and we're very excited to have you here and to chat with you.
Thanks so much. Really appreciate you having me.
Great. Well, maybe you could give us just an overview of what is Injective and a little bit about your background to start.
Yeah, so hey guys, this is Eric Chen, co-founder and CEO of Injective Labs. Started working on Injective since 2018. Before that was mainly participating in research and honestly, spent most of my time in school. So Injective is a sector-specific layer 1 blockchain built for financial applications. It's an open, interoperable layer 1 blockchain powering the next generation of DeFi applications, including a lot of very unique decentralized spot and derivatives exchanges, prediction markets, lending protocols, and much, much more. It's built on top of the Cosmos SDK and utilizes Tendermint proof of stake consensus mechanism with a lot of optimizations reaching 25,000 plus TPS. And of course, the most exciting thing we've done recently, and that's a bigger part of our collaboration, is spinning up the Electro Chain initiative with INEVM and INSVM, alongside with many, many ecosystem developers working on it in collaboration.
Great. So let's dive a little bit deeper into the Injective SVM. Can you tell us a bit about when this launched and just what opportunities there exist on there for Solana developers?
Yeah, of course. So one of the biggest problems we notice for the Injective ecosystem is that developers come from all different walks of life. Some of them could be extremely familiar with EVM, and a lot of them we start to notice, if not the majority of them, are extremely familiar with SVM. And this kind of created an opportunity for us to really huddle down and build out a multi-VM environment to bring on all the developers from all walks of life into leveraging Injective's native infrastructure and to provide value for the Solana ecosystem and to scale various applications utilizing these type of native on-chain primitives on Injective to build powerful applications for cross-chain use cases. So currently, INSVM is under development with quite a few companies and parties, and I think the timeline will be released soon.
Awesome. And tell us a little bit about your relationship with Solana. Like, what about this ecosystem excites you? What do you want to see people doing with the Injective SVM?
Yeah, so I think Solana has created this very impressive mindshare of advanced financial developers and also various advanced use cases for different types of general base layer applications that was previously demonstrated within the Ethereum ecosystem and now elevated once more within the Solana ecosystem. And for Injective's case, it's for us to create a kind of like a biased sector-specific layer 1 blockchain environment with these out-of-box chain native modules for all these Solana applications and these type of Solana protocols to leverage, to synergize with the cross-chain propensity of the Injective ecosystem and to extract liquidity, to provide liquidity, or to synergize various financial flows or various transactions across all the multi-chain world.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the INEVM. You have about 20 dApps, that are widely used and live on there. Can you give us some insights as to, that the dApps that were built on there that are kind of in high demand from your user base, and then maybe relate that again to what you expect to see on for Solana?
Yeah, so obviously INEVM is heavily in development, and the 20 dApps are simply dApps that has gained significant traction already in other multi-chain environments. Last I checked, there's probably hundreds of dApps at this point, if not thousands, built by various community developers and projects, et cetera. And of those 10 to 20 dApps, which are mainly migration or cross deployment, such as layer 0, et cetera, building and integrating with the ecosystem. It has done very, very surprising amount of transaction and traction within the ecosystem, and brought a lot of already synergy with the Injective ecosystem, the Ethereum ecosystem, and many, many more. And of course, with the success of INEVM, there's also been further development into exploring cross-chain synergies or cross-rollup synergies with Arbitrum. And we aim to kind of follow the footstep, if not augment even further with INSVM by kind of synergizing even deeply with the Injective ecosystem and the Solana ecosystem, given the native overlap in terms of like a contract language that is Rust. And of course, kind of leveraging the alignment of kind of like developer thesis on being high performant, on being kind of like advanced compared to a lot of the base layer applications that are currently being pursued within the Ethereum ecosystem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this weekend, yesterday and today, we've been talking a lot about meme coins. We've been talking a lot about that, kind of meme coin mania that's hit Solana. Some people are speculating that this is the new, sort of bull market or buzzword for this cycle. Other people are sort of saying that this is maybe more of a passing trend. What's your take on watching that, kind of come in full force and get a lot of attention recently?
I mean, this isn't the first time we've seen such trends and such narratives being popped up. One thing I do notice is that time and time again, meme coin, which is basically a signaling or kind of like a marker of community alignment and like a community strength, coming on at various points of every single cycle and taking a significant kind of like passion and energy from the community members. I would say, it's very, very clear that, these type of trends, it's a very simple economic signaling of the strength of the community, and it's here to stay. Now, the main problem is obviously, well, like a specific coin, like, cat with, I don't know, sunglasses will be the everlasting, meme trend out there for the next decade. That's, very, very hard to say. And I think it has to be evaluated independently because we see the trends of, a lot of the meme coins, but the names rarely do overlap. Now, I'm personally like a big fan of dApps, so I definitely hope that it comes up time and time again.
We had a car with hat here yesterday at the conference. We'll send a photo to you, but it was a car with hat, and you can probably find it on Twitter as well. So let's talk a little bit more about maybe some of the advantages for Solana developers to be building on Injective. What do you see as just kind of the big trade-offs for them? Again, I know you can't see our audience, but we're in a room with a lot of developers who maybe haven't heard of Injective. So what are the kind of big takeaways you want people to know?
Yeah, so going down into like a bit of specific technical detail, et cetera. So for Injective's native environment, the storage layer is typically, especially with Store v2 like improvements and upcoming like Cosmos SDK 50, it's a lot more convenient and a lot more economical compared to the Solana environment. And that's because obviously Solana provides a much higher or much faster block time compared to like Injective's block time. And this basically creates like an environment where it's very clear and palpable pros and cons. Where you get to access storage, and this type of storage layer allows for like an on-chain, immediately accessible and highly scalable like order book layer that can expressively represent liquidity, that can expressively represent different types of settlement with a lot more like ease of access for a lot of archival data or persistent data being stored on-chain. And this type of advantage obviously translates well into like SVM, which tries to access like at the bare minimum like a translation layer between the kind of native environments or native contracts being built within INSVM with the Injective core chain primitives. And what this allows for is that you're going to see like a native order book that powers that acts as kind of like the root for the entire tree of offerings within the Injective ecosystem. And this type of root has a very much blockchain advocate designed by a frequent batch auction that can allow for parallelization scaling, that can allow for almost like a kind of longevity potential for optimization in the long term. And what this allows for is kind of this fundamental layer of building block being always cheaper and more efficient and faster for developers to access, for developers to utilize, for developers to tap into for the entire multi-chain world, and synergize it by further and layer of like liquidity reinforcement, flow reinforcement, and just general like dApp reinforcements.
Yeah, and so Injective, I guess the topic of this panel is, a multi-chain future, and obviously Injective is integrated with many different L1s, and as you said at the beginning, kind of built on top of the Cosmos SDK. And I still feel like we're in this phase where new L1s are kind of popping up. Like I'll be at conferences or I'll meet people and I'll hear of projects, and just from the Injective side of things, when you're looking at who to integrate with or which environments you're going to build, how are you analyzing this? And I guess maybe going back to like when you first heard about Solana, how soon after were you working on integrating?
Yeah, so I think for Injective's case, it's more about like a sector-specific approach. When it comes to developer looking to build, various type of kind of like non-financial related or kind of like general perhaps pure gaming or like pure social, et cetera, like type of decentralized applications, we typically would go to them and say like, hey, like genuinely we think that there's probably like better environments at an Injective for you to thrive and to grow in the most successful way possible. Because at the end of the day, Injective isn't trying to be like an X killer, Y killer, like Z killer or whatever. It's trying to act as like this hub that takes an opinionated stance on a specific type of primitive or a specific type of transaction, and trying to serve in an unopinionated way to all these layer one environments, to all these like a multi-chain world of madness. So that like Injective can have its unique offering that's absolutely being reinforced, and more importantly, that's necessary to be decentralized for it to stand as a blockchain, as a layer one environment, but purely for the financial use cases, which decentralization is the most critical ethos. Yeah.
And in your time in the space, do you feel like your definition of multi-chain or the way that you think about that concept has evolved, as the tech has changed? Can you tell us a little bit about just how your thinking, has shifted over the years?
Yeah, I think it went from like 180 and then another 180, which is back to a 360, because essentially like 2018 or 2017, it was very much of a multi-chain world.
Yeah.
There were a lot more diversity in terms of like contract environment, different types of languages popping up, different types of VMs popping up on top of, like the debate or like the battle amongst like multiple consensus mechanisms. And then it slowly became almost like a monolithic, like a single chain thesis, or like a oligopoly of layer one environments. And then like with the success of Solana, with the success of all these very, very impressive like layer one environments that really proved its position or proved its longevity within the space, it kind of went back into a 360 where it's like, okay, so clearly back in the day, it was way too early to kind of like enact the multi-chain thesis, and it was clearly spending too much time on debating on like various peculiarities of consensus properties or VMs without having like a specific like a business substance or like a kind of social substance behind those type of layer one environments. And now we have evolved into the second stage where a lot of things are making sense. A lot of the trade-offs are very, very much rational, and developers are presented with a very, very clear choice amongst all of these layer one, especially between Ethereum and Solana, on like what is pros and cons on deploying on Ethereum versus deploying on Solana. What do you kind of get in terms of advantage? What are just specific trade-offs? And I think the world is going to be a lot more, in a sense, beautiful, because there's a lot more expressive and a lot more like layer one environments with different types of characteristics serving the user base in the end.
Yeah, and I think that's something that's really great about projects like Injective as well, where it's like, you are compatible with these different L1s. You kind of have users from many different chains, and you get to go to pretty much any conference, and you fit into those ecosystems. I know you guys, go to a lot of events, have a really strong community throughout the world. And so I want to steer our conversation towards something, a little bit different, but I know it's something you've been thinking about a lot lately. And I'm just going to ask the audience quickly, is anyone here who's heard of RWAs, or like who's seen that word? Okay, we have maybe about like 20 hands raised. So Eric, could you maybe define RWAs for everyone and just kind of give, just explain what that is?
Yeah, so RWA, functionally speaking, is basically like a tokenized representation of some asset or some concept or some goods that exists within the real life, right? And this is very much similar. So gold certificates is very much similar to like stocks in the electronic trading world. It's simply like a tokenized or digital representation to resolve kind of like the immobility of the underlying goods at scale, or like at kind of like a longevity or shelf life of those underlying goods. So that's why commodities are typically tokenized. That's why like companies are typically tokenized in a certain way, and funds are typically tokenized because they generally have real life counterpart operations or entities, or like actual palpable like a storage for those goods. And RWA is this trend that it was basically like the most classic example or like use case for like blockchains, even since like it was like first proposed as an idea. And time and time again, like there's been attempts on like various firms and various like protocols or various teams trying to tackle this problem, trying to bring like mainstream adoption. But it's always like a kind of like convoluting factor of timing. It could be resource, it could be like adoption that really miss the mark. And currently for the past few years, or past really 1 or 2 years, it's really getting more and more promising to do a lot of the early investment and showing early signs that like RWA adoption is providing extremely palpable value add, value prop, and more importantly, users have a genuinely very good reason of adopting an RWA offered by or powered by blockchain because it's cheaper.
Right. Yeah, I think, like you said, even in this last year, there's been so much buzz about RWAs. A lot of experts and even economists outside of crypto have predicted this, potential 1 trillion market. And, when someone throws out a number like that, obviously people are going to pay attention. So they're going to start looking at it a bit more closely. And it's my understanding that at Injective, you had a mainnet upgrade recently, and you introduced the first RWA module that allows institutions to launch and access, different structured products in RWAs. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and also what kind of collaborations and partnerships you're hoping to have in the future with institutions, and just maybe how these institutions are approaching RWAs and potentially working with Injective?
Yeah, and I would like to note this in like a comical way. Like this is like the type of stuff that like a sector-specific or opinionated or purpose-built blockchain can get away with, which is kind of building out like a core chain primitive that gets adopted within the entire like chain and adopted by all the validators. So we initially were trying to tackle, the specific liquidity fragmentation issue with RWAs, and more importantly, the fundamental, like incompatibility for RWA assets versus, any type of permissionless DeFi protocols, or basically to, create like a backporting or, like a future-proof way of kind of bridging like RWA assets are permissioned by nature with the liquidity and flow in like a parameterized way to the global like DeFi ecosystem, especially starting from the DeFi ecosystem within Injective. And the way we did this is by proposing like a module that is almost like a like a permissioning wrapper on top of the existing like native token standard within Injective. And what that allows for is for kind of like a optimistic transferability while retaining like the permission nature of things. And it allows for like a transaction or composability to not be broken when trying to interact with a certain DeFi protocol or with a certain DeFi mechanism or certain contract in a general sense. But when it's being transferred to kind of like individuals outside the permissioning set, by kind of resolving the stock fund issue, which is the fundamental reason why it's incompatible with a lot of DeFi protocols, it creates like a kind of like a voucher system, which allows for the fund to be immediately routed to like that specific module, and allows for kind of like the sender or kind of like the source initiator to kind of like claim it back to basically kind of like reinitiate like the proper transaction within the permissioned counterparty. And what this allows for is like you can trade the RWA asset on Helix. Perhaps Helix can be if the RWA issuer chooses, the Helix can be kind of this de facto platform where anyone can openly trade it in one scenario. But in order for them to actually take custody or hold it, it would have to be within a permissioned or within the whitelisted set. And on top of that, like there's also a lot of different kind of like inheritance of permission assets, along with the potential for like a RWA asset to be bridged from Solana, to be bridged from Ethereum, where the kind of whitelist set is inherited from the source chain, source destination. So all this allows for is not necessarily creating something or creating an ecosystem that completely deviates from what has been kind of like an implicit consensus for all the RWA issuers, but to create more fidelity or more dynamic range of optionality from the strictest compliance, which is like only the permission KYC participants can hold it, all the way and add more kind of like optionality from full permissionless to full permissioned. So this way, different types of issuers for different types of asset has a lot more choice and has a lot more kind of like control with the parameter of permissionality, if that's a word, to choose from.
And so since you've done this upgrade, are there any sort of I guess growth stats or insights you can share with us? Just in regards to RWA?
Yeah, I mean, this is a very much of a long-term investment.
Yeah.
So basically, like the permissioned like a module upgrade has basically sparked a lot of like kind of like integrations, a lot of existing work for different types of platform to adopt. Obviously, a lot of existing RWA platforms has already deployed on top of Injective for that. But I think this is the type of upgrade that has a 4 to 5 year horizon for it to truly replace like a critical layer within the traditional financial ecosystem. So I would say like it would probably take a while before we see a very like kind of like eye-catching stats of $1 billion plus asset has been issued on this, or like billions of dollars of transaction, simply because like the velocity of these type of transaction is very, very meaningful on like a deployment basis, but it takes a very, very long time to truly gain steam and truly gain ground. But once it does, it's truly unstoppable.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of conversations this weekend about the trade-offs of Solana, the positives of Solana. And I think one thing that's been consistent in a lot of talks is just how it really is the L1 that's accessible to someone entering crypto right now. So like, let's say I'm brand new to crypto and I buy a little bit of Sol. I don't have much crypto. I can still go and trade on Solana, and gas fees are low and it's fast. Do you think, I'd love to hear your take on RWAs and Solana. Again, this kind of long-term vision. What do you see as the potential collaboration there?
I think at the end of the day, like RWA is simply like ERC20 with a little bit more aggressive blacklist. So it basically means that RWA will be incorporated into the DeFi ecosystem and kind of like have its level of adoption after like a few years of maturity to be almost like identical to like the permissionless ERC20 or like a Solana native token counterparts, right? So for whether that be like ERC20 or SPL tokens, et cetera, it's just going to be an asset that exists within the ecosystem, like any other asset, with like the high transaction offering, high transaction throughput offering, low gas cost offering, and extremely fast finality offering, like like any other token. So yeah. I think that is my bull thesis on like RWAs.
Cool. Okay. Well, we need a prediction market or something for the, the 4 to 5 year, thesis. We'll come back to that. So we have about 5 minutes left. I'd love to kind of get a sense of what Injective is working on now, maybe some recent growth stats, anything you can kind of tease and share with the community that's coming up.
Yeah. So for the past few months, I've been truly humbled by the amount of growth and the amount of net new mindshare that's joined the Injective ecosystem. Before we used to love keeping track of the cumulative volume that's being done on chain, but that's being done like on Helix. I think Helix alone already carries like God knows like 30 billion or 31 billion whatever trading volume on chain. I mean, last I checked, just a few days ago, there was like a 600 million transaction milestone. But I think, wow, I'm probably pretty far off at this point, given that, the number of transaction count on Injective is probably top 10 within like all the L1 ecosystems and many, many more. And I think, one of the things that was like one of the earliest economic initiatives, which is the token burn, has been, kind of creating like an interesting subculture of economic research with $300,000 or $400,000 being burned weekly. So overall, I think it's been in a very, very kind of like humbling and also exciting spot to kind of watch the ecosystem grow, to be in a state where like a lot of the kind of initial fleeting idea during the brainstorming phase of designing the Injective infrastructure kind of materialize and being pursued by a lot of different projects and a lot of different teams.
And what's your 5-10 year kind of goal / plan with Injective? Where do you want to see things in the long term?
God, so many. So basically, those were like brainstorms. When we were first designing Injective, there's obviously been a lot of brainstorming sessions, a lot of fleeting ideas, and I need to start taking notes on a lot of ideas I gave to various teams, because a lot of them are kind of really advanced kind of usage or leveraging of the Injective core primitive that has yet to come into light, or that has yet to materialize. So I think there's a lot of things to be done here. And on the Injective Labs team side, there's been a lot of work on kind of holistically pushing through or pushing forward on the multi-VM or parallel SVM kind of an initiative to allow for INSVM, to allow for INEVM, and all the various types of VMs to launch in the future, to really proliferate, to really hit the ground running, and to really kind of showcase the level of interoperability brought forth by it. And on top of that, one of the biggest things is multi-chain world has been extremely poorly abstracted, where only the most advanced users or almost developers can truly leverage it as almost like a back-end process that people in the Web2 world oftentimes forget about. And it's time for us to basically bring kind of a structured approach when it comes to layering and abstraction and different frameworks to allow for kind of a cross-chain interoperability and multi-chain interoperability to really thrive, and allow for multi-chain apps to stand on its own, not as an application being powered by ecosystem, but rather the ecosystem being powered by the application, and going between and allowing users to traverse through all these ecosystem, from Solana to Injective to Ethereum and to perhaps even Bitcoin in the blink of an eye without them even realizing it.
Great. Well, I have one last question for you. We have just about a minute and a half left, but do you have any advice or tips for developers, that are new to Injective? What's the best way for them to get started?
I'm going to skip the learn Rust part. I would say start off with the website, injective.com. It's almost like the key for you to get all the information that you want, especially on our developer section. And you'll slowly get to check out all the docs of various on-chain primitives of various applications on top, and or directly leverage the core chain primitives via the chain docs, etc. And I think that's honestly the best way to get started. You already got through the hard part of learning Rust, so the easy part is really just the reading of the docs.
Great. Well, hopefully many people here will go and check out Injective. Eric, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure to get to speak with you, and thanks again for taking your time to be here with us. Cheers.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate it.